Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News Show, and we've got another of our interviews with executives of junior mining companies. In this case, it's Patrick Highsmith from Timberline, which is one of my sponsors for my shows, and really happy to have him on today because you had some great news out, Patrick.
Yeah, good to be with you, Allan, and kind of happy to talk about some different rocks today than we've been drilling in Eureka.
Well, you know, in your resource area, I'm really excited about a few things. I like the way the mineralization, the rock packages, the faulting is all going towards that huge IP anomaly that you have that looks like it could be the plumbing system for the gold mineralization.
Indeed, yeah, it looks like things are pointing to the east down there and to the south, and we agree it's a hot area, and that's of course Carlin type mineralization there, and the stuff we announced today, as we'll discuss, has some earmarks of Carlin type, but we're also clearly in this CRD district up north there with these rocks.
That's really got me excited because the success that i-80's had with their CRD has really blown that story wide open. High grades of zinc, lead, and silver, as well as an overprint of high-grade gold. Then you've got Paycore right beside them, same story. They just did a $8 million that turned into a $16 million deal financing. Little Golden Lake has found CRDs with high grades of zinc, lead, silver, and an overprint of high-grade gold. And now you guys are right there as well. And it looks like you got the same kind of a story. And this whole area of all four of you has seen a lot of CRD mining in the past.
It has, and we shouldn't be surprised, of course, Allan. I mean, Eureka was the first claims in the 1860s, we believe, were actually staked in New York Canyon, the areas we talked about in today's news release. And in fact, the patented claims, part of the claims we've recently acquired in that area, have been held by the same private groups for decades and decades, and they go back to the first producing mines there, even before Ruby Hill, most likely in the 1870s. So this is a bit of a history lesson. But, as we discussed once before, Allan, even back in the day, this CRD district was sort of curious because there was a bit of gold with the silver, lead, zinc, more than is usual in those types of systems. And we certainly see that here in these rock results. These gold credits are significant. And I think it's because we see two systems separated by millions of years in time, of course, but occurring in the same space, more or less. And I think we've got chemical evidence of that.
They're likely fault, like there's a whole network of faulting that corridor that goes actually from i-80 all the way down to your southern claims, but then it also encompasses your eastern claims, and that's likely the conduit that those fluids made their way up, whether it was for CRD mineralization or the gold.
That's right. And we young geologists, we're all taught, big crustal scale structures can move a lot of metal. And lining up your prospecting and your claim staking on big crustal scale structures like these is probably a good place to be. Yeah.
Well, and then you take into consideration that you're getting that extreme high grade gold in that same CRD environment. Wow, some of that rock values that I'm seeing out of the area are just off the charts.
They really are. I don't do the math too often because then I'll just get too excited. But when I see, for instance, in this release, we talked about some of the rock samples that are, recent from Timberline work in the last couple of years, type of recent, 55 grams per ton gold, 32 grams per ton. And then, of course, silver values in the hundreds of grams. We highlighted the ones that are sort of above 250 grams per ton, and there's a good number of those around. So in percentage levels, what do we see? 8% zinc and 7 or 8% lead as well. Even 0.5% copper kicking around. So it's a true polymetallic system here, Allan. We know it's got structural control, and we can talk about that, how we'll tackle that in the drilling. because we do see some of the faults that are probably influencing that. But we also see, voluminous alteration. For instance, some of this Hanson Creek dolomite up there, Allan, is completely sanded. You scoop your hand into that stuff and it just crumbles out of your hands. So it's not just a vein. That rock's been decalcified. And the fluids that would decalcify a rock like that, of course, will also bring in some of that gold mineralization. So we'll have to do a bit of work in 3 dimensions and see what we can differentiate as we approach this thing to drill it. Is this structure over here the gold rich one, and that structure over there the silver rich, or is it more just the volume of rock is juiced, with both of them? But a lot more work to do. But boy, the initial results, they sure do get you excited.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring up something here. Do you want to share screen or do you want me to share screen?
Why don't I share screen? Because I updated
Yeah,
a couple slides with today's news. So that might be the
yeah,
smart thing.
because this really, I was looking at the distribution of your silver and your gold in relation to the faulting. And then I also looked at the area and see that, everything's structurally controlled. And you're getting that mineralization right beside the structures.
Yeah. And let me just show first an introductory slide here. You can see this screen now?
Yes.
And great.
Yep.
Okay. So what I did on this slide is I just showed really let me see if I can bring up my pointer there. I just wanted to show the kind of a rough outline of where the lead zinc silver district was originally known to exist. And of course, you don't put hard boundaries on something like this, but clearly up here at Ruby Hill, most of that gold mine was out under the pediment. So the silver lead zinc miners were a little bit south of that for the most part. There's the FAD shaft,
And that just shows the bigger ones because there's mines all over there.
Of course. And that's what a lot of this down here, there's a lot of small mines in the northern half of our southern claim block. All through here, the Golden Lake claims have some of them, and then up here at New York Canyon, of course. And so this is just where that production was probably concentrated. There's the glory.
Okay. I got you. You weren't identifying all the mines. You were identifying the area where the mines were.
Yeah, that's right. And like right there is the Ruby Hill Glory Hole, which the Paycor folks have some of that ground, right there. We have another patented claim over there in that part of the district as well. But then you get it down in here, and of course we know even way down here, Allan, we drilled silver in these holes east of Waterwell. So I'm not saying the system is limited to that footprint. I'm just saying that within this is where most of the lead zinc silver production came from back in the day. And it really began here, and then it moved over here to the bigger production at Ruby Hill later. And then, of course, up at the Ruby Hill gold mines. So anyway, there you see the results there, which folks can see in the news release. But then I put together a couple of more slides, zooming in here on this.
You know what I did pop out to me there, Patrick, was the copper.
Yeah, exactly. It really is a little unusual in these systems. I think the high value was 0.8%, something like that, but a lot of 0.3 to 0.5% copper. We do see copper in the district in places. We saw some copper staining in these samples. And over here to the west, when you go along this structural corridor over here, there's also some copper that shows up.
Could that be related to skarn?
It absolutely could be. There is evidence that there are porphyritic rocks at depth in this area over in here and up in here that may be driving some copper. We see some moly anomalies as well. So again, you know how it is in these districts, Allan. There's probably big intrusives that moved a lot of these fluids, and some of them may have gone porphyritic, and definitely there is skarn around the district as well.
Because that's coming off the east side of the Archimedes pit up there at i-80 Gold.
Right. There's definitely skarn up there. You're absolutely correct. They comment on that all around the
drilling. You can actually see the alteration from Google Earth when you aim to look to the east.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. Good outcrop throughout this area. And you can get a lot of color anomalies that you can see with remote sensing and with the Google Earth, like you said. So in this slide, I just wanted to show a little more of the infrastructure here. So we zoomed in, and just kind of fun right here, Allan, is our field office and our core shed. So we're literally, this is Highway 50, and literally less than 5 minutes from there, you turn off on this dirt road, which actually crosses over many of the patented claims, which is great, right through the core of New York Canyon here. And so just infrastructure is amazing, and the road does cross the patented claims. So that means permitting will be much easier. You don't even have to permit on BLM ground if you don't have to build any roads or access any BLM ground to get here. So that's very exciting. So you can see here the cluster of gold and silver. And I just want to point out the triangles are historical samples on which we have not relied. There's a database of historical data that indicated a lot of high values in here. And you see those warm colored triangles are high grade from historical sampling. But we came in to confirm with the round samples that you see, which are Timberline samples, either a couple of years ago or more recently. And you can see we got high values in both data sets, kind of consistently hundreds of ppm of silver, as you can see highlighted there in blue, and then also the high-grade golds. Now, in general, you can see an alignment in the rock chips, maybe 500 meters in a northwesterly direction by a couple hundred meters wide, that probably are lighting up some of these faults. I'm going to show you on the geologic map in a moment. And that definitely is an area, but you can see even down here, 12 grams gold, some other high grade gold and silver spread around a little bit. But definitely as you go north in the canyon, things get a bit more exciting up in here. And this is what we've been waiting to put this picture together, and really these patented claims that are outlined in this area really kind of highlight this thing kind of consolidating and giving us the momentum here to go forward. And so it was on this map where we actually showed a bit of geology. And the two key takeaways, I would say, are first of all, the presence of the Hansen Creek here. Now, the Hansen Creek is well known in Nevada. It's the host up at Jarrett Canyon for a lot of the 13 million ounces of gold up in that district. And that's Carlin type mineralization. And down here, though, Nolan describes from his landmark paper, I think, back in I think originally in the 30s and in the 60s, it was written about. And the Hansen Creek here is all dolomitized. It is almost always brecciated. And it's often bleached out in association with alteration. And we can tell you that where it's cut by these structures in here, we see gossans developed on it. We see breccias that are mineralized. We see veins that are mineralized. And also these structures that we have like this one with sanded dolomite, where the rock literally crumbles in your hands. And that's where a lot of these samples came from in this area. So these northwesterlies appear to be key. Now, maybe lots of them are mineralized, okay? But the intensity of it definitely gets more as you go north. The miners found that. One of the first mines, according to Nolan, maybe the first mine in the district was here at the 76, the Eureka and the Eureka Giant, early days of mining here. So they caught on to that northern part of the canyon as well. But the other aspect of the geology we shouldn't forget, Allan, is this is the Ordovician so-called Pogonip group. That includes the Goodwin and the 9 Mile, which are key hosts up at the Ruby Hill mine, right? So they not only host gold, but they also host some of the CRD up there. So the fact that all these rocks are dipping east, okay, and we've got Pogonip group rocks here cutting underneath this area with all these highly mineralized structures, Allan, we may find not just the high-grade structures we see, but the interaction of these structures with the better host rocks at depth is a target. And, we're still working on the geometry, Allan. We'll put some cross sections out as we go forward.
For the non-geologist out there, you need a path of least resistance, your cracks in the earth, and then you need like a sponge of rock that allows those fluids to then spread out. And that's what you're explaining, Patrick.
And the Hansen Creek is a good host. We're super excited to see all this gold and silver at surface, but so are these rocks in the Pogonip group here. In between, this is the Eureka quartzite, not a good host. In fact, that quartzite may have been a cap that kind of held things in, Allan, kind of pinned in the whole system, except for where these cracks allowed it to break through. Those faults broke the Eureka. We see alteration in the Eureka up here. You can see there are some anomalous samples in the Eureka, Allan, but the good stuff is in the purple and maybe in the blue underneath here where these big structures provide the plumbing. So So it really is a play that'll develop over time. But the best thing about it, look at the infrastructure. You can drive right in. You can
Wow.
drill on patented claims. So we can move quickly to test this target with shallow drilling. We project now. We'll refine this projection, but we project that these rocks may be within 200 meters of surface down here. So even the deeper target is still pretty shallow compared to what some of the other folks are drilling in the district. So we're super excited about that. We think it does have 3 dimensions, and we'll soon bring in the truth machine and put the drill under some of these rock samples, and really don't see any impediment to getting some exploration done here in the first half of the year. We can definitely get a drill rig out here, maybe even as soon as April.
That sounds fantastic. I'm just blown away with what's being found in that Eureka camp, with not just the CRDs, but also the gold, like at Ruby Hill, or the Ruby Deeps, and the other gold that they're finding up there. It's just an amazing area for finding CRDs, skarns, gold deposits. There's something big happening down there.
There really is, and I'm being a geochemist. I was pretty excited to see our multi-element data come back, and that's where you see the sort of different footprint of these things, Allan. Like you get the copper, the lead, the zinc with the silver. Then you say, okay, that's your CRD. Those also have antimony and a bit of arsenic with them. Whereas the Carlin type, we know has the gold and the arsenic, but it also has a lot of the element thallium. So when we saw the thallium values come back here, and I discussed that. We had some friends of mine who used to work for Barrick out here, some folks who used to work for Newmont, and we talk about that geochem, and everybody agrees it's kind of a garbage bag, probably because of these big structures that run up through this valley here, and that's the plumbing that's moved all this chemistry through there. So yeah, it is, and from this point back up to the northwest, about 3 kilometers, is the Ruby Hill area where they're drilling their base metal, their CRD. And about 2 kilometers more in this direction is, of course, the Paycore Fad Shaft area. So we're right in the thick of things.
You're right in the heart of I think it's emerging as one of the most important exploration regions in all of Nevada.
I agree. It really is exciting, and to have the polymetallic system, especially when Ewan and i-80 Gold are talking about perhaps building a concentrator there to produce these CRDs. So when you're thinking long term, multiple paths to development are possible here, including the CRD mineralization. And of course, the long term view is we need a lot more drilling for all this Carlin type potential up and down these properties as well. And of course, we're trying to do that. So it will definitely be one of our prongs of attack in 2023, New York Canyon. So stay tuned and look for that name as we go forward to drill. Maybe the first place we drill in 2023. But we've still got a lot of work to do down at the water well zone and out there where that big IP anomaly is waiting for us to the east.
Oh, that thing's just screaming out to be drilled. That you see the faults and the mineralization is right on the contacts, and everything is pointing towards that big IP anomaly being where everything is coming from.
It is, and it may be so complicated, Allan, and so big in the IP because it shows both of these systems again. These CRD systems move a lot of sulfide, and if there's granite down there, we know we've drilled into the halo of it, right? We hit that 200-meter run of 5 grams silver. We had another long run of 6 grams silver. Individual samples up to about 120 or 140 grams down there. Nothing this high grade yet. But that's sourced probably from a big granite throwing off a lot of sulfide, and that may be that IP anomaly we see. Well, but of course, we know the Carlin types like that environment, cozied up against that granite and in association with those same rocks. So
that's interesting because now i-80 has been showing some of their geophysics, and right beside, they've got a big IP anomaly there too, right beside the hilltop zone.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that figure. So that measure of chargeability, for folks who aren't technical, it's showing you something that takes up electrical charge, whether that's pyrite or whether that's graphite. those rocks are often black because of graphite in them, and that carbon also takes up a charge, and so those are kind of multiple weights of evidence that suggests there's something down there that is, highly out of equilibrium with the surrounding rocks, and that's how these things are often, they're often the roots of these systems. And you
And
get a
if you
hot.
go just not too far to the north of that IP anomaly, you start running into where there was historical CRD mining on your property.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. When you and you follow it to the north, you get into both our Rocky Canyon target over there, which has gold, and then if you go off to the more the northeast, exactly right, you get into some of the southern extents of the CRD mineralization. I'll just go back to that map, the bigger view. But for folks, we're talking about big IP anomalies sitting down in here. But interestingly, we also have them up in here, Allan. These IP anomalies. So north and south, we've got these big IP anomalies. There's even one up here, which is due south of the Diamond Mine, which is held by a private family up in this area. It's called the Diamond Mine. It was a CRD system as well. So definitely we have these structures that are giving these geophysical anomalies. And if you follow them both north and south, you can find CRD mining, or down here, of course, both gold and some CRD in this part of the world.
And if you go right in between that FAD shaft and the Archimedes, that's where they got a big IP anomaly right there as well.
Yeah, exactly. There's this big structure that runs down here, and this patented claim we own over here in this part of the world has some really interesting geochemistry on it as well. So yeah, this district is super exciting, and those big through-going structures, they just line up north and south for kilometers, and that's the key. Look how linear these things all are. They're stretched out like beads on a string, and in the old days, the prospectors did a great job of finding this stuff, but they wouldn't have had the ability to chase them to depth, nor would they have been able to produce them economically. There were only a few cases where they went to depth in this district, and a lot of these areas, they would have only been mining the gossans, or the portions where they're oxidized, like in these areas, and getting below the water table, they wouldn't have been able to do that either. So these are all.
They move some material around. Like I go to Google Earth and I can see a lot of material was moved around all the way through your claims and all the way up north to I-80.
Oh, absolutely. It's a big mining district, and I think only the surface has been scratched. There's a lot more work to do here, and this is the kind of thing. I mean, people would have thought, oh, Timberline doesn't have any of that CRD stuff, and we knew this stuff was out there, but we needed to get a better understanding of its extent and to go in and validate the historical work with the modern work that we've done now. With the benefits of 43101 and having a QP and all that over the top of it. You just need to do that homework, and sure enough, these targets are out there, and I'm sure there'll be more. Unfortunately, between us and Golden Lake and Paycor and I-80, the story that's going to be told in this district is going to be told by these four companies, and that's pretty exciting.
Well, especially because you're all nice enough to be sponsors of my shows, and I can put out tons of content, and the most important thing is you guys are delivering with the truth machine. And it's showing that this could be the most important exploration region for all of Nevada. And that's saying a lot.
Yeah, it really is. And I hope, this much high-grade base metal is a bit different than some of the other trends. Importantly, there is silver, lead, zinc in both the Carlin trend and in the Cortez district, obviously in Battle Mountain district. It is normal for these things to be polymetallic, these big gold districts. But here, I think the grade of silver is a real standout. And that's one of the things Ewan's been pointing out. Its economics could be very, very attractive. And of course, so is the economics of these sorts of grades in gold as well.
Well, it really pops out to me because I live in Mexico, central Mexico, and I'm not very far from a 100-mile radius of me. 10% of the silver ever produced worldwide has come from that region. And I see grades there that's what makes up mines just for silver here. So then you got the zinc, the lead, the gold. It's pretty incredible stuff.
It is. The geology is fascinating. To have it come to surface here and have good access like we have here. The thing to look for is look for us to get some news out in the next month or so with kind of our plan for the drilling program in 2023. You got to follow this stuff up. This is just early indications. But the reason I think it's got nerds like you and me excited is it fits into the geologic puzzle so well with all the other work that's happening up here.
Yeah.
But certainly, what really matters is getting drilling these things to depth, and we look forward to doing that. And I expect to see the drill in several places on our property during 2023.
Well, you guys are definitely on that Eureka CRD map. That's for sure.
It's good to be there. We'll plant our flag right here at New York Canyon. And,
Well, I don't think it stops at New York Canyon. I think there's CRDs down in your main claim block as well.
Yeah, that's right. And that's one of those ones where, especially those deeper holes, as a junior company, you have to balance that. Like here we have a nice mix, Allan. We've got a resource that comes to surface, which needs more work up and down the lookout trend. Nice resource there. A lot of that is oxide and potentially leachable. See our technical report for details, of course. At Windfall, that was oxide for heap leach. There are targets, as we've shown in our presentation, coming to surface there. We know about deeper high grade here, new discoveries here at Oswego that had never been drilled with core before. We've now started to learn more about that. And then up here at New York Canyon, Timberline has done no drilling in this part of the world at all. So that's the benefit of having 70 square kilometers of project here. But of course, the challenge for a junior company is to balance the efficacy of your drill projects, your drill budget, with a mix of, say, shallower, inexpensive RC drilling, and then the deeper holes that sometimes need to be both core and RC to save money. But you got to keep the pipeline full because, as you know, the market, a major company will pretty hard to impress these days. The market's pretty hard to impress. So you got to persist and you got to keep doing the technical work. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to get this news out. It's sort of the next cab off the rank. There are more targets. Just when you think you kind of know the targets, the names of all the targets we're going to be drilling, we got another one.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, keep that pipeline full and get that truth machine cranked up because I think you guys got some great stuff in the near term here for your shareholders, Patrick.
Well, thank you for your enthusiasm, and it's real exploration, and we're happy to be doing it and piecing the puzzle together. And stay tuned as we update on our plans for our exploration program during 2023.
I'm a treasure hunter at heart. When it looks like you got a treasure, it gets me really excited, Patrick.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
I'm gonna wrap it up, and we'll talk on the other end.
All righty.
So there you go, folks. I actually talked about this news earlier on my In the News show, and the point that I was making was that I think this company is very oversold here. They're right in the heart of one of the most exciting parts of Nevada. They've got a great resource that's growing, and right beside that resource is a big IP anomaly. They've got lots of historical mining of CRDs on their property. Now they've done this sampling that shows that it's got all the right juices flowing up there at the New York Canyon project as well. And when you take all of that collectively and look at it in the valuation relative to the potential, that's why I make the case that the company is very undervalued, and they're going to have a lot of news flow, and we're going to be doing a lot more of these. So on that note, as always, my shows are for information purposes only. Important for you to do your homework, speak with your financial advisors, and stay tuned for more shows with me and Patrick, because I'm confident we'll be having lots to talk about. Have a great day, everybody.